Good morning, everybody. Another Thursday. I'm Evelyn Thoren. I am your host for the next couple of hours. We're the Dawn Patrol from 6 to 7, and we are City Life from 7 to 8, approximately. Sam Chase is here as my co-host. Thank you very much for showing up again.
You're welcome.
And we really appreciate it to get your slant, opinion, and facts on whatever it is we talk about.
All my opinions are slanted. There's no question about it.
I think every opinion, by definition, is called slanted.
So I just want to let the
You
viewers.
lean one way or the other.
That's true. I want to let the viewers know that I'm not as tall as I look. Evelyn just informed me that I'm sitting in the high seat, so
Yeah,
So,
the cushions. Or
optical
whatever
illusion.
Yeah, whatever the stuff is here. It's okay. I like it up further only because my feet more than touch the floor on these chairs.
Well, you have long legs.
Yes. Yeah, my legs are almost as long as Glenn's.
I have short legs and a long torso. And many years ago, I worked for a guy who was 6 feet 1 inches tall. And when the two of us sat down together in chairs that were the same height, sitting down, we were the same height. And we used to do this all the time because he thought it was funny. And we'd stand up, and it was like this. And people would say, "Oh my God, you're short. He's tall." But sitting down, we were the same height because he was short, torsoed, long legs, and I was bigger torso, very short legs. So.
Well, if we're going to talk about body types,
Yeah.
every time we talk about this, I go back when my 49-year-old son was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was visiting my friend whose son was just a few months older. And it was funny, they were the same height. But when you looked, one had the short legs, one had the tall legs,
Right.
and the body types and stuff.
The short legs run in my family, so.
Yeah, they don't run in mine. Neither do small feet, but we won't go there because that's not necessary. So it was raining on the way in, and which it's only going to rain today, from what I could tell. I looked at the weather map.
Sunday, they say, too.
Well, we need the rain
Oh,
because a
absolutely.
lot of people complain about the rain, but if you don't have water to drink,
You're in trouble.
yeah, because that's what we are.
Talk to the people in South Texas.
Well, even Georgia was having a problem with it, and my sister
Right.
I spoke to, she's in Florida, on the way in this morning, and she said they haven't had rain in a long time, and there's chance of fire. Apparently, there was a fire in Chelmsford yesterday on High Street.
Yes, Tubridy's.
Yeah, so I wondered if she actually got around. They sat at our table on Monday night for Springtown meeting, which we will briefly chat about. We'll use that term briefly, loosely. So when I saw the responses on Facebook, I went, "Oh, they must have got around to burning, and it got ahead of them." So I
Yeah.
think it ruined her shed because the wind could have taken
I
it
hope
too.
none of their vehicles were damaged. I mean, they have 7 vehicles. John is a car guy, all right, and he's really into, and I hope none of their vehicles were
Well, we'll
damaged.
find out tonight.
Yeah.
Because they'll be
yeah,
there.
They'll tell you.
As for town meeting reps.
54 degrees.
Yep.
Yeah, when I got up, it was like in the high 40s. It was 47 degrees.
There's a good-sized fire in Lowell up in Belvedere. on Village Street, next to the,
Oh,
Yesterday?
is that current?
next
Now?
to Holy Ghost Park,
Yesterday?
yesterday.
Oh, interesting.
Big fun.
That's too bad.
Yep, so everybody should be conserving water, like, instead, if you take a 20-minute shower, take a 10-minute shower, because nobody needs a 20-minute shower unless
No.
something else is going on. So, that being stated, Chelsea does have Springtown meeting. It's usually by charter the last Monday of the month. And then it goes Monday, Thursday in the week so that everybody knows what it does. But it didn't start out like that. I started in 1989 as a town meeting rep. And at that point, it was like consecutive evenings. If everybody wanted it that way. So it's modified. We have a new town moderator. I thought for the first night of him being town moderator, he did a very good job.
I do too. That's tough, especially when you're starting out. Yeah.
Yep,
He
I
did
thought-
very well.
Yeah, and he was, I think he was a little overly cautious, but it's better to be that than something else. And I thought he handled himself very well because sometimes you have several, I would put in quotes, difficult people.
Yeah.
Either they don't hear you quite well or they want to get their opinion heard, and they take a long time to ask a question.
And I think, in Lawrence's case, I've known him and you've known him for years.
Yeah.
But you saw it Monday night. I think he has the right temperament for the job, and that is a huge factor in this. For example, I would be a terrible moderator because I have no patience, okay, when people stand up and they say stupid things, okay, even though that's their God-given right. But you need somebody like a John Curland or a Lawrence McDonough who they're able to, they have the right temperament going in there. You don't need somebody that's going to bang the gavel every 5 minutes. And
Well, he didn't bang it at all.
No, I don't think he even had a gavel up there.
Well, I don't know. They did hand the gavel. So John
Yeah.
Curlin was our last
He
term moderator,
he has a gavel.
and he
Yeah.
handed it over to Lawrence because they took pictures of it and they posted that on Facebook.
Yeah, I saw that.
So,
Yeah, no.
And
he-
now
That
John-
was scripted,
which
the
thing?
transfer of the gavel.
Oh, yes, it was.
Oh, yeah, that
Yes.
was deliberately.
Yeah, that's not
yeah.
something that we've seen before.
No.
But then we haven't had that many
It was
town
nicely
moderators.
done, but it was scripted.
Oh, yeah, we knew that.
Since the
Well, I
inception,
don't think the audience did, so that's why.
since the
Yes, and I
inception.
appreciate that.
Since the inception of the charter, which was 1989, and that changed our form of town government. So before the charter, we had an open town meeting like they have in Tewksbury. When the charter came in, the charter said, okay, you're going to have a representative town meeting. So since that time, we've only had, Lawrence is the fourth moderator.
Yes.
So we started out with Dennis McHugh, and he did it for a long time.
Because he was also when we
Yeah.
didn't have representative town meeting.
And I think it was 30 years plus. And then we had Dick DeFreitas, who did one term, and then John Curlin was elected in 2014, okay? And so John went from 2014 to
26.
26, which is
12 terms.
four terms, because it's a 3-year term, and the moderator is elected by the townspeople. So, so now Lawrence is the fourth since 1989. So that's a pretty stable situation, I think.
Right, so usually in Springtown meeting, the venue is budgets and money. And in the fall town meeting, it's, any catch-up on that, and not catch-up in terms of something
So did
red.
you guys pass it? Did you give Paul Cohen all the money he wanted?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's not quite that simple.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
It's not quite that simple. So in the fall town meeting, that's usually like zoning articles and
Right.
all this other stuff. But we did have a zoning article on the spring town meeting warrant, and that was lighting. And that passed. And I was so tired by the time 11 o'clock rolled around, I left. So was there much discussion on the article that came after that that Kelly Beatty had wanted on lighting? Was it? Remember,
Well, there are two articles, 27 and 28, and 27 was the actual
lighting article.
lighting article, and then the follow-up article was the zoning changes to accommodate the lighting article. So that was, I mean, if you passed 27, you had to pass 28.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
because you have to modify the
Right,
words.
so, now that does not become effective, again, because if a warrant article passes town meeting, it does not become effective right away. It has to go to the Attorney General for review and to make sure that it meets all the legal stipulations and so on and so forth. And the Attorney General has to essentially green light the article, and after that's done, then it becomes operative. And I can only remember one time in the last 30 years where the Attorney General did not accept warrant articles. So, and that makes perfect sense, because the warrant articles, before they even get on the warrant, they are reviewed by town council. So they've already had legal review, and, so the expectation is that they'll be approved. So, but that was a very interesting discussion, and what happened was that article was brought forth a year ago, and it sought to change the bylaw with regard to outside lighting. And a year ago, it did not pass. And the reason it didn't pass is because it put too many restrictions on residential properties, okay? And people, things like you would have had a problem with your Christmas lights, that kind of thing. And people didn't like that. So he went back, and I'll give our finance committee some credit, because we pretty severely critiqued that article, and we gave him a list of things that we thought should be changed, and he went back and incorporated most of it. So the restrictions and the changes fall mostly on the commercial property owners, and the problems generally are you have a commercial zone right next to a residential zone, which is my case, because we have a problem with the lighting on the Summer Street Mall, where the light shines over into our property and so forth. So this new bylaw addresses those situations. So I think it's going to be good. It's going to work out well.
Right, well, Glenn got up and addressed your issue indirectly.
Yeah, I noticed that. But I found out yesterday that actually, under the existing bylaw, it's a violation.
Yeah.
I can get that enforced. So I spoke to the building commissioner yesterday and said, get over there, make that guy change his light, so.
Well, there was, the church that we've attended on Boston Road is on the other side of the water, when you go south towards Billerica. And when they were building the church, because of the lights and everything, there was concern with the neighbors. And so there was a lot of discussion as to what kind of lights would be there, when they'd be on and everything.
That's a
And as
big
far-
property.
Yes, and that was, I'm assuming that was donated. I'm trying to remember back. That
What
was
is the
donated.
town gonna do about the streetlights? They staying on?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's a safety
Yeah.
issue.
Why aren't they motion sensitive?
Because they'd be on all the time. Glenn did ask the
They
question.
are on all the time. It's a pain in the neck. You get up, and there's a blaring light coming in your window, and it's a street light. and it's
Okay, so
never
the way
going
that
away.
so the way
It's
it
not
should,
okay.
the way it should happen is they can be on, but it needs to be a down light.
Right.
And that way you have it covered so that all the light goes down and it doesn't go towards your windows.
Doesn't radiate laterally, right?
Right.
That's
So
Evelyn, a
that's your
streetlight
issue.
doesn't need to be on at 3:00 in the morning.
Well, everybody has a different opinion.
Oh, really? You have a street light shining in your bedroom window?
There's no lights in my house coming in because there's lights on the
Oh, so
street,
you have no idea what I'm talking about.
except for all the
well,
night
I do.
lights.
We have a street light right outside in front of our house, so I know what you're talking about.
And when I grew up,
Does it need to be on at 3 a.m., Sam?
Probably not, but the way we have our lights, like Evelyn says, they don't radiate horizontally, so we get the light and it's more of a down thing, so it really doesn't shine into our house. That's the way they've done the lights in Chelmsford.
right, so when I grew
Right.
up in the city of Quincy, there was a light that was probably 25 feet, a street light, 25 feet from my bedroom. I never really thought anything about it. All I did was I pulled the blinds.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't mind simply because, for whatever reason, it didn't affect me
We
any.
live in a technology era where they can all be motion sensitive. And once they detect motion, they stay on for 5 minutes, so they aren't gonna blink on and off all night long. But once everybody's home after 11 o'clock, the lights are gonna go out. Like down Hampton Beach, you can't enjoy looking out at the ocean at nighttime because the town's decided the lights are gonna stay on all night.
Well, my understanding of
For
lights,
the
they're
fish to enjoy a view.
photosensitive, so they'd actually have to do more manual or programmed, if you have it
Motion
on.
sensitive. And-
Not
and-
motion, but it's light sensitive, it's photosensitive. So when, kind of like the light I have in my front yard, my yard light, and the one that we had at the lake, it comes on when it gets dark, it goes off when it gets light.
Well, it should go on when it gets dark, and if there's no motion, shut off.
So one of the
Why
questions.
does it need to be on if there's nobody there?
Because it has to do with a safety issue.
Oh, really? Safety from, if a light turns on, motion sensitive, it alerts everybody something's moving out there.
There's more to it than that, because you can be out of range.
Yeah,
So
well,
the,
and I don't know, I mean, I kind of agree with John, but the only thing I would say is that it could be, and I don't know, I'm just saying I don't know, because this is something you gotta research. You know, whatever the laws are concerning, and there are, I can tell you there are laws surrounding, you know, the lights and when they have to be on. So it could be that, you know, the town doesn't have the option by itself to turn off the lights. I don't know. That's something we'd have to find out.
well, I can ask.
Yeah,
But the other thing,
that's, you know, I don't
one
know.
of the questions Glenn did ask is something similar to what you brought up, but on a personal level.
Yeah.
And if you have a motion light that is not a down light, motion sensitive light that's not a down light, then is there a restriction on that light, or can you still have them? And the answer was, as long as it turns off within 10
10
minutes.
minutes, right, which I thought was pretty generous.
Yeah, that's a long
Yeah,
light.
so it can be on for 10 minutes. I think I would have made it 5 minutes. But again, he's trying to get his article passed, okay? So, you know, he's given some, you know, latitude there.
So I'm gonna ask my phone, see if it comes up, as far as.
I thought he did it. Kelly is a very,
Or smart guy.
very smart guy, MIT, master's degree, so on and so forth, engineering background. And when he researches something, you can pretty much take it to the bank. I mean, he's got the facts, and he knows more about the lighting in town probably than the people in the DPW do. I mean, he's just pretty knowledgeable. But as I said before, a year ago, it was too restrictive on the residential properties, and that was the reason it was defeated. That was pretty much mitigated this time, and so it passed quite easily, I thought.
So I asked the question, there are no federal laws.
Well, state law.
I understand, but I asked it. So you have state laws, energy codes, and environmental regulations. Most street lighting is controlled by city or town government regulations. I'm going to ask if Massachusetts does it, because that will lead into some of the other things.
Yeah, Massachusetts is a different animal,
The
as we
standard-
all know.
The standard non-metered operation for most streetlights is automatic control via photocells, ensuring they are on from sunrise to sunset. Some states, such as Massachusetts, have energy codes requiring exterior lighting to automatically shut off or dim when sufficient daylight is available or during certain late night hours.
There you go, John.
So it is there with Massachusetts.
Yeah,
But the town's exempt.
No,
Well, no.
it just sounds like they may not be in compliance,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So let's ask,
so I have to find out.
I'm going to ask about Massachusetts. There may be recommendations, but I don't know if there's any basic.
No, the next time I see town council, I'm gonna ask them to look into it, and we'll find out what the law is. So-
Okay, so it's typically managed at the municipal level or the local utility companies.
Well, one thing, and I'm gonna guess Lowell probably's done the same thing, most towns, they have been putting in the LEDs, over the last several years, and, you know, and that includes traffic lights as well. And one of the problems they found out with the traffic lights, with the LED, is in the wintertime, when you get snow and ice and wind, and it cakes up on the traffic light,
Oh, yeah, it doesn't melt.
it doesn't melt because the LED doesn't put out the heat the way an incandescent bulb does. So I don't know how, they did address that. Again, I don't know enough, I'm not an engineer, and I don't know enough about how this stuff works. But they did fix that somehow. I mean, the lights are now designed, I don't know, but they don't have that problem that they had when they first
Right.
started it.
So it also says that Massachusetts Energy Code 2020, exterior lighting is generally encouraged to be dimmed or turned off. This is light, no pun intended, of what John said, during 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. unless needed for safety.
All right, so that's probably the hook they use.
That's correct.
Yeah, the safety, okay.
Safety aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then it talks about headlights. So I
Well,
thought that was interesting.
In Chelmsford, there is virtually, we have 38,000 people in town. It's a big town, but it's a suburb, okay? And after about 9 o'clock at night, there's almost no traffic on the roads. It's pretty dead, pretty dead. So you probably could make a case for not having the lights on, okay, in terms of the traffic situation.
Well, one of the reasons, there's several reasons why they want to have more control over lights. But one of the reasons, first of all, there's light pollution.
Mhm.
From outer space, you can see where the big cities are because the lights are on all the time. But then you have people working on, in the 24/7 timeline
Except for
in
North
shifts.
Korea.
Pardon me?
Except for
Except for
North
North
Korea.
Korea.
And then
That's right.
the other part has to do with the fact that the lights are interfering with migration, and between the birds and the insects and some animals, is that it gives them a false sense of this is daytime, or it's daytime all the time, and they don't know what to do with it. So that's part of why I don't mind having like the down lights, and we don't have our yard light in Chelmsford goes all the time at night. Only because of just safety reasons, and because we're in and out all the time. I mean, we don't have any particular schedule, but it's nice to have that light on. And then I like to leave the lights on the side on the garage, because again, that lights up an area for me when I'm going back and forth. And I just leave those. They're LEDs. We just leave them on all the time, whether we're home or not home. So there's different things along that line, and there's a lot of stuff that people can do to save money as far as the electrical stuff goes, and part of it is LEDs. But I'm noticing, because we had replaced some of the lights in the house with LEDs, over a period of time, because they have a range that you can program them with, like little switches and stuff, they will defer against the warm light, which I like, which the harsher blue light irritates my eyes. And so I'm finding that even though we've had them for like a year, some of them only a year, they're failing in terms of having a
Well, they don't last
range.
forever, but they.
But not a year. I
No,
mean, a
but
year
no,
for them
no.
to change in terms
No.
of what the frequency is not acceptable to me, so.
I agree, Evelyn. They're supposed to last 7 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, the
we-
one that we had at the lake has lasted a lot longer than that.
You can't, it's pretty tough to get 7 years out of an incandescent bulb, but the.
Well, the new light bulbs, unless the case got dropped in shipment, they'll last you a long time.
Yeah, they do.
But if the case got dropped, they're gonna die within the first year.
Well, that makes sense. Several years ago, I had Mass Save come in, and part of that program was they replaced all of our lights with the LEDs, and I noticed the first month, my electric bill went down by $15. Okay, so that's the difference.
You're monitoring that.
That's the difference it made, and I think that was, I'm trying to think how long ago that was, we did it, maybe 12 years ago, and I think in 12 years I've replaced 2 bulbs, that's it. Okay, so they do last a long time, yeah.
I don't mind using them, as long as they're in a softer,
But you remember when they first came out, they were terrible. I mean, the light, it was awful, okay? And my wife went to the store and she started to hoard incandescent bulbs.
oh, I have a file of them
And,
too.
because she said, we're not gonna be able to get these anymore, and she said, I can't, these lights are awful. And so we kind of fought it for a while, but then very quickly the industry fixed it. So now the lights They're good, they're okay, you know, but when they first came out, they were awful.
So there was one of the things that that I sent out, since we're talking about Massachusetts, and this was
Most
telling you
expensive US cities.
the 25 most expensive U.S. cities to live in, and Boston is number 8.
Number 8. Okay, what's the first one?
Manhattan, New York,
Oh, God, yeah, that makes sense.
Honolulu, San
yeah.
Jose, San Francisco,
Yep.
Brooklyn, Orange County, and Queens. So your top 7 is split between New York and California. And then you've got California. There's a lot more California expensive cities to live in, but I just want to let you know Boston is the 8th. And then the other one that I sent, because John has this, that was back.
Now, that's in consideration of everything. Total expense, taxes, rents.
Oh, yeah, the
utilities,
criteria.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so that's anything dealing with finances. All right, then we talked about, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, like where you can get senior discounts. So there's 13 retail stores, but the ones that are in our area, Kohl's has this is for seniors, a 15% off on Wednesdays.
Now, how do they define senior? 65 and older?
It could be 55.
Really? 55?
It could
Okay.
be that.
All right.
Usually what we think of is retirement age,
Right.
65 to
65,
60. But
right.
sometimes it's a 55 thing because you got 55 and older communities. So it depends on the individual store. But anybody listening, you want to check it out before you actually ask for it.
Yeah.
However, the fine print on Kohl's says if you go to Kohl's and you buy something and you are a senior, hand over the Kohl's cash first if you have it, any dollar coupons that you have, and then ask for the discount. So you get more money, you're going to get better money
So
off.
they
with
don't,
regard to that.
so they will apply the discount even if you have coupons.
Well, that's what this says.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, some places won't do that.
No, what
Right.
they do is they will take your discount off the total, and then you take whatever the other percentage is off the rest of it, so that their exposure is limited. Oh, that's kind of cool. There's MBTA.
Now, see, I didn't know that.
Yes,
So
I
you
knew
can
that
get-
about the national parks,
I did not know that about the MBTA.
and that's 65 and older.
Well, that's a huge thing.
Oh, you got Walgreens is up there. That's the next one on the list. 20% off.
Yeah,
And it looks like it's my Walgreens members.
okay.
So you have to have a card, and this says Tuesday of the month. Michael's is 10% off.
Yeah, we have, our Dunkin' Donuts in Chelmsford offers the senior discount.
Yep.
Yeah.
Savers 30%. I don't want more stuff. You've got Goodwill. I don't go there. PetSmart, if you have pets, is only off grooming.
25% off.
Yeah, that's a deal.
That's every day.
Varying by location. All right,
Excuse
and the
me.
movie theaters too, yeah, you can get senior.
Oh yeah, you can, because
Now,
that's
don't
what,
forget, in addition to the senior discount, a lot of places have veterans discounts. So that's the other thing you want to ask for,
right.
okay? And what I would suggest you do is the next time, if you haven't already done it, if you're a veteran, the next time you apply for your driver's license, if it's a real ID, you can get a veteran's status on your driver's license. If you're a veteran, get the license stamped. So that is absolute proof that you're a veteran. So I would suggest that you do that. You have to give the registry a DD 214, all right, and as long as that's in order, then they'll stamp it.
So, just briefly, I had there's a whole lot of stuff that I send, as John would tell you. There was one of the ones I had, do the rich pay their fair share? And this, according to,
The rich are moving away.
I know
Yes.
that, and they don't like it. That's why New
Who
Yorkers,
can blame them?
they have the ability to do so.
That's what our federal system is all about. We've discussed this before.
Right, but one of the things that people don't seem to understand is if enough of the rich people move away, then the next set of taxes coming down are going to the middle class. And so they become the rich in that particular area.
Everything's relative.
Right, and so basically 1% of the people in the United States pay 46% of the taxes. I
That's
don't think
inco-
that's
that-
called fair, but that's beside the point, because
Well,
everybody
it's
talks
not
about the
supposed to be-
ability
It's not
to
supposed to
pay.
be fair. It's a progressive income tax, as opposed to what we have in Massachusetts, which is a flat tax. So if you live in Massachusetts and you make $1 million a year, you pay
A percentage,
5% or five and a quarter, I think it is. You pay 5.25%. If you make 50,000 a year, you pay 5.25%. Now, the way you progressivize that is through exemptions, okay? So if you're $50,000 a year, you have, you get your personal exemption and other exemptions. So actually, your effective tax rate isn't that much, all right? But that's a flat tax. Federal tax, as everybody knows, is progressive. So the more income you have, you pay at a higher rate. That's the idea. So,
so one of the other things, I don't know if you want to do this, John, it's becoming tick season, and there's a lot of people out there that are saying it's really
We
bad.
don't have ticks in Lowell.
you don't?
You have no dogs in Lowell either.
We
So,
don't have any ticks. They have them out in Chelmsford.
We do.
well, we're talking about Chelmsford then, and we're probably talking about Dracut and Tingsboro,
Oh,
because
they have ticks too. Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
Tewksbury has a few.
Right, but if you go to
They
any of,
they send them to Chelmsford.
if you go to any of the communities apparently that have ticks, like for instance, if you go for a walk, if you go anywhere where there's grass,
Stay out of the tall grass.
yeah, well, it's not just grass. It can be any number of things. Anyway, there was on Facebook, there was a, what do you want to call it? Shows you what the ticks are. I hate ticks. And what the diseases are associated in order to prevent them. So if you're working, in your yard, they tell you to put like double-sided tape around your ankles, because that's how they usually get to you, is climb up the legs.
Oh, my God.
That's not a bad
The
idea.
first cookout I go to when I see double-sided tape on somebody's pants, I'm gonna take a picture and make a
Yeah.
fool out of them.
That's a good idea.
Yes, but if it's keeping you from getting Lyme disease, I don't think that should be a problem. So,
That's what they used to tell you. Remember when we had the gypsy moth problem?
Don't they have like,
They used to tell you to put the tape around the trees, right?
yes.
So that the caterpillars wouldn't get up on the. Yeah.
Right, but then they crawl over each other
Oh, yeah,
because
no,
they
that
get
doesn't
stuck.
work. That doesn't work.
But some of the ways to prevent tick bites, according to the article, and he has it up there. Walk in the center of trails and paths to avoid brushing up against bushes and weeds. Avoid sitting on the ground, tree stumps, or stone walls. And then wish this stuff didn't come up. Wear long sleeve shirts and long pants tucked into boots or socks. You can wear white socks. The other thing is you do have spray, and when you do that, what I usually do if I know I'm going to be working outside is I spray before I put my socks on, then I spray the socks, then I spray the shoes,
God.
among other things. Well, I don't want tick bites, and I'm in a location where there's a lot of them because there's a lot of deer. And what was it say here? And apparently they're increasing because it said that the numbers are up since 2017. So basically, everything I told you to prevent them, it's on this list. It's all stuff that we do. So that was that one. And then the other one that I had sent,
Ticks.
that I
kinds
thought
of
was
ticks.
interesting, was if you have debit card or credit card fraud, the liability rules are different. So a lot of people have debit cards, but you can have overdrafts, and a lot of times the bank isn't notifying you in time, and there is a charge for overdrafts unless you have some special.
I do not pay. I do not use my debit card to pay anything.
I don't have one.
I use it to get cash out of the ATM. That is the only thing I use it for.
Right, but I don't have one. I don't have I don't have a debit card. I don't use an ATM because that's not something I do. Credit card fraud, the federal liability cap is $50. The most issuers will waive that to zero through a zero liability
Right.
policy. 60 days to dispute from the statement date, and disputed charges removed during the investigation. So there are companies, however I don't know how they get your charge card number. So, not last year, but the year before, there was these little reoccurring charges. Usually it starts small, $1.50, $3, whatever it is. And I'm reading what it is, because I do read my charge accounts coming in, the statements. And I would recommend everybody read their statements, because as soon as you can catch it, it's better, because it can get worse. And so I called, because I have a Discover card. I also only have 2 charge cards, because anything gets stolen, I can't remember everything I've got in my wallet, so I want to limit my exposure. So and I never had too many of them to begin with. So with the Discover card, I signed up for alerts. I get them by text messages, and I set my limit. So if there's a charge, I have a transaction alert, so I know anything coming in over $50. Or it could be under $50. It just depends on if it's something they don't recognize. If it's something that, like, for instance, when my children, this is going way back, were on my charge card, because that established a credit for them, and they didn't abuse it, then I would get phone calls from Discover, because one kid's in Maine, somebody else is in Virginia on a trip. We're in Massachusetts, and they're seeing the same card in the same day come up, and no one person could ever do that. So if you're traveling, you should let your charge cards know, so that you're not declined.
Yes, correct.
If you are going overseas, or traveling abroad, or whatever term you like to use these days, you should also let your credit card know that that's where you're going to be. And you should also let your telephone know that they are going to be in those areas, so that you don't get overcharged for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the same today, but it used to be like that 10 years ago, because I haven't traveled much in that time frame. So I thought that this would be interesting for people to know this information. I know that, usually we talk about local politics and things going on, but I like to kind of hit a few things that might be appropriate on a day-to-day basis with everybody.
I gotta say this, equally important is, if you're going on a trip,
He knows.
take a look in your wallet. Do you need all those credit cards?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, okay, well, maybe I don't need this one,
Leave them home.
So,
Right.
leave them home.
Right.
And only bring 2 credit cards with you.
That's what I
Bring
do.
a MasterCard and a
Right.
Visa. If you want to bring your American Express, hey, Haley, Hallahoo, whatever you want. But cut down the number of cards you have. Take a photograph of both sides of each card you're taking on vacation. So when I pick Sam's pocket and his wallet's gone, he has the 800 number to call, because he has a picture of it on his phone. He has the credit card number. He can report, shut the card down. Very important. When your wallet's gone, okay, what's the 800 number for MasterCard?
Who knows?
But
Right.
if you took a picture, you'd have it.
That is.
Also, it's a good idea to take a picture of your driver's license when you
Yes,
get it.
I was going to say that. That's very good advice, and I would, as John just said about the license, I would extend that to other things that you may have in your wallet. If you're going to travel and you don't need the thing in your wallet, leave that home too. I mean, obviously you need your driver's license, but there may be other cards, licenses, whatever, because it's just a pain in the neck to have to go replace it if it's stolen. So if you don't need it on the trip, take it out of your wallet. Don't take it with you, and then you won't have the problem if it's stolen.
So one of the other things that came up, which I think was yesterday,
So,
I have to see where I have this article.
Also, internationally, take a picture of your passport.
oh, absolutely. Yep, absolutely right.
I have the little card that's a passport, and then I have the book, and I
Yeah.
usually have them in
But-
2 different places.
We have those, but I also, to John's point, I also have it on my phone. My wife and I have photographed that, and we have it on our phone, so that in case we have a problem.
Because when it's lost, a picture's better than nothing.
That's it.
Well, I take a picture every year of my boating license, because I don't want to carry it. So if perchance there was any of the Marine Patrol that comes around, I have my boating license on my phone, because I carry my phone like
Will they
everywhere.
accept that?
I don't know. I've never tried. They've never.
Better than nothing.
Yeah,
You're
I've never
right,
pulled it
you're right,
over.
you're
I've never been pulled over.
At least they'll know that you are licensed. I mean, there may be a separate violation that says you have to have it on you, but at least they'll know you're licensed, so that's important.
Well, there are some police officers that will tell you, picture of your driver's license is just as good as the physical
Okay,
license.
well, that's,
Some will
Front
agree
and
with
back.
that, some will not.
yeah.
Yeah, front and back. So in there's a couple of other things I want to talk before Sydney gets here. Massachusetts passed a law that they're going to allow $25,000 so people that can't pay can get housing. Then they're going to put a
Do
surcharge,
you know how much they pay in public housing?
a lot.
They pay like $100 a month
You mean for rent?
for rent and utilities.
Yeah, you have to file all kinds
That's
of,
pretty good.
Legal
So you're an old
documentation.
timer. I'm thinking of downsizing. Put all that, sell your house,
It's a hell of a deal.
you gotta
put
get rid
that
of all your
money
assets.
into a trust, and move into public housing for $100 a month.
Yeah, except there are limits. There are limits. I mean, if you have a lot of money in trust, they're not gonna let you into
You
public
put it in
housing.
a
gotta be-
trust, it's not, you don't have it anymore.
No,
That's not true.
no, they'll find out.
You have to have an irrevocable trust with a separate trustee in order to be
It's
able
a
to have,
piece of, so you get a special piece of paper,
that's true. And you
get a
can give it
special
away.
piece of paper that says, I'm poor. And you get public housing.
So when Sandra comes back in, the next time, we
We'll
should ask
about
her those
that.
questions.
We'll ask her about that. Yeah.
And we should ask her about inheritance taxes.
Well, I got a question for Vivian Merrill when she comes.
Yes?
If a roofer falls off your roof,
Who's liable?
will your insurance company pay? I say yes. I want to find out what her opinion is.
Yeah, it depends on how the policy's written.
That's correct. And
Well,
then,
when you buy liability insurance,
do a civil
it
one.
doesn't exempt the postman from falling down your steps.
No, but there generally are listed exclusions, and if you don't want the listed exclusion, then you have to get the company to take that out, and then they're gonna charge you more money. So it depends on how the policy is written.
so, in light of the question,
Because how can you trust your roofer says he's insured, or she's insured.
you have to show the
but
papers.
They show you a piece of paper, a fancy piece of paper.
And you take a picture of it.
Yeah, they show you the piece of paper, and you find out that was fraud.
Yeah, and
Right.
it does happen.
Right. They've
Is your
made it up.
insurance company going to cover you?
I don't know, but we can certainly ask Vivian that question.
Yeah.
So there's also that Massachusetts, from one of the articles I read, anybody out there, please correct me if I'm wrong, they are now going to charge a surtax on paint.
What kind of paint?
I would assume any kind, because they're not selling oil-based paint much anymore. It's almost like you got a special order your oil-based
Okay, so
paint.
So
Why?
you go to Home Depot
'Cause they need
and
more
Salem.
money.
Go to Home Depot and Salem.
So let me look it up.
But there has to be they have to give you some reason why it's paint. Why are they directing that at paint?
There was a reason.
They can.
I
That's
understand
where I
that,
was.
but
Our governor's doing it.
they would have a reason. What is it?
I'm beginning to think she's going to lose. I know she's got
No.
$40 million
There's
in
no
her
way she's losing.
campaign account, but I'm beginning to think she's going to lose.
You think
People vote their wallet.
a Republican's gonna beat her?
People vote their wallet.
No way. No way she's gonna lose. I'd like to see her lose. I think she's a terrible governor, but, that's just my opinion.
So, the reason is the proposed Massachusetts paint tax is designed to fund a statewide manufacturer-led paint recycling and stewardship program.
Okay.
The fee, part of a $3.64 billion climate bill, aims to reduce environmental contamination, manage 1.8 million gallons of annual wasted paint, and lower municipal disposable costs. And there's nothing, from what I can tell, that if you have excess paint, that you can do much about it, because there's nothing local where you can recycle the paint.
They tell you for latex paint, they tell you to let it dry
Hard,
and
right.
solidify, and then you can put it out in your trash.
Yes, but it's still there.
I get news for you.
Yeah.
That whole bucket's going in my trash. I'm not going to do nothing to it.
Well, I do, just because that's me.
Oh, goody two shoes.
Well, I've been out like this
So
a
you're
long
gonna
time.
you're gonna put, like, if you have a half a gallon that you wanna throw out, you're gonna put just that wet.
If I'm cleaning out the garage,
If you're just
and
gonna
there's
put
a-
that wet paint in your
There's a
trash.
shelf. There's a shelf of chemicals. I'm putting them all in my red barrel and putting them on the street. I ain't doing nothing.
I had different ways to get around doing stuff like that, but
You
I'm
put 'em in
not
a-
sharing
in a
those
red- You put
online.
them in a big black plastic bag, and look the other way. Bye bye.
So the other thing that you
No,
can do.
Do you throw your used motor oil down the storm drain?
No, not
Okay.
anymore.
No, because, not,
In the good old days,
So
yeah.
what's the difference?
What's the difference? Well, it goes to the big inferno in Haverhill, and the motor oil gets burnt up. And so do all the chemicals.
well, anyway, so they're
Maybe.
proposing this, and that's another thing.
Do you
And
think
it
the
said that
average
it did
person
pass.
takes their paint can and opens it up and waits for a year for it to dry out?
Doesn't take a year.
No, it
Okay,
doesn't.
how long does it take, Sam? Since you do
Several
it?
weeks.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah, but I also have kitty litter left over, and you can take kitty litter and stick it in it, and that dries it up, or sand, and I do that.
Or you can put it in a black plastic bag and forget about it.
The paint lasts a long time, though.
I'm a city boy, that's what we do.
If you
Right.
keep
I
the
don't do that.
container sealed, it'll last a long time.
Now, there was a fee for oil-based paint that was established a long time ago, but I don't know if it was federal or if it was just Massachusetts, and I have to look that up. And you're not supposed to put stains in, but if you sop up the stain with a lot of paper, there's nothing that says you
Very-
can't
it's
throw
hard-
that away.
It's hard to find oil-based,
Right, but the stains are oil-based.
well, it's even getting harder to find. I mean, I've had this thing for years. Raw wood should be covered with oil, at least the first coat. And then you can put the latex on top of it, but that's what I've always done.
But then you have to, it's gotta be special, because before you couldn't do that, because of the way the chemistry worked, but now they have it,
No,
so
but,
it does.
well, the last 25 or 30 years, the chemistry is that if you have a top-quality oil-based paint, that's your primer for raw wood, and then the thing is, you gotta let it dry. You can't put your latex on in 2 or 3 days. You gotta let that sit for
Right.
a few weeks,
So-
and then you can paint it over.
Right, and I agree
Okay.
with you,
Yeah.
but, there's something called wood conditioner, which is not, as far as I know, it's it's water-based. So you can put the wood conditioner on the wood, that seeps in, you gotta let it dry. And then you can stain the wood, which is, we'll say oil-based, just so we keep this simple. And then you can then seal that once it's dry. You wipe off the excess stain, unless you wanna have it dry darker, or you have several coats of it as it dries. So we went, because we were putting a wood ceiling up, we need to seal both sides. And I did it with polyacrylic, because it dries quickly, it's easy cleanup, and, it's fast.
It's water-based.
And it's water-based, so, yeah, it's water-based. So I was able to do, probably in, say, 3 days, almost 40 boards. So I had 20 12-footers, and I had 20 16-footers, both sides. So I was able to do that, but when I hadn't bought polyacrylic in a long time, and the last time I bought it, I thought it was expensive at like, $30, $40 a gallon. It's $75 a gallon, depending
Paint
on
and
where you
stain,
go.
good quality
Or
paint
le-
and
little
stain
less.
is very expensive.
Yes, paint got very expensive. Is this your fire in Lowell?
Yeah, where do you see this inferno?
Where was it?
On Village Street, that's up by Stadium Plaza, Holy Ghost Park.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
on a Holy, this Lowell Sun article says it was on a Holy Ghost property, it was a garage on a Holy Ghost
Whoa.
property.
Do they know how it got started?
I didn't read the article.
Hey, it could be that paint. Spontaneous combustion.
Could be a squirrel smoking in bed.
Well, it was a garage, so, yeah, it might have had chemicals.
So
and
this
stuff.
Yeah, we
house
had
got
a-
damaged too, look at this.
That
Holy
side.
cow.
That's vinyl siding, right?
Yeah, it'll melt.
Yep.
So thank God for the little firefighters.
That's why it was damaged, it melted, because you saw the
Yep.
staircase wasn't burnt.
So, but looking at that
That's
flame,
not good.
big time fire, baby. Thank you, Lowell Sun.
Is that today's paper?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, because I didn't.
And I
See
figured
anything
when
yesterday.
Sidney comes in, we could talk about all things Lowell. There are a lot of things on my list.
Well, I'm sure he's gonna wanna,
Yes, but we always do. We always talk
Yep.
quite well, when he comes in, and it's really nice.
well, I think, it's good, and I've always said, I think the people in Chelmsford and Drake, Tewksbury, the towns that abut Lowell, I think the residents should pay attention to what's going on in Lowell. I know one of the reasons I like coming here is it forces me to pay more attention to what's going on in Lowell, all right? And I think it's important for the area towns. Lowell's a big city, and it has an influence, whether you believe it or not. It does influence what goes on in the adjacent towns as well. So, you know, it's a good thing to be
Well,
up
it's
on the
nice to know what's
Lowell-
going on
Yeah,
around you.
It's a good thing for people who don't live in Lowell, but who live near it, to be up on what's going on in Lowell.
So, there,
Also, today is Erin Gendron's first day working with Jerry Nutter on the radio. So when
Okay.
you get out of the car, WCAP.
Jerry's back on the radio?
Yep,
When did that happen?
I don't know. Well, Gary Francis. One of-
Frascarelli.
That's his radio name's Francis.
I understand that.
His legal name's Frascarelli.
Yes, it is.
Gary-
That's why I call him Frascarelli.
Well, I was out in California and talking to a radio guy, and he says, "Do you know Gary Francis?" I says, "Yeah, he's one of my best friends."
In California?
Yeah, I'm talking to a radio guy out in California, just chit-chatting.
Well, they have it's sort of a club that they belong to,
And
right?
so he was impressed with Gary.
So,
So this is Erin Gendron, her first day with Jerry Nutter. So when you get out to the car, put on WCAP.
Frascarelli is not on the radio anymore?
He's on in the afternoon.
On in the afternoon, and Jerry's on in the morning.
Yes, until I guess 8. There's a little bit of a squabble going on there we're not supposed to talk about. But Jerry has to leave at 8:30 for his real job.
Right. Yeah, that's why okay, so what are the hours for Jerry's show? So much-
6 to 8:30.
6 to
Wow.
8:30, okay.
it's a long time. So one of the other, there's a couple of highlighting points since we've got about 9 minutes
30
left.
minutes longer than us, that one. And
Yeah.
we have more airtime than him because when I used to do the radio, I would moan to George Anthes, "We only have 12 minutes to talk."
Oh, it's
Well, there's a
unbelievable.
lot of commercials.
Yeah.
You have a weather check, a traffic check,
Yep.
and a news check.
Yep.
12
Every
minutes.
half hour.
I used to go on Warren Shaw, and he'd have me on for an hour.
You'd
And
be sitting there for an hour.
and it was like maybe 25 minutes of actual conversation. Yeah, so,
So one of the other things which may not be of interest to you guys, but it is of interest to anybody that cooks. Endocrinologists are recommending that because of all the PFAS, the BPAs, and all of the other stuff that's in a lot of the plastics and everything that we use, to go back to stainless steel, to go back to
glass, there you go.
and to they have beeswax covers, like instead of using plastic wrap,
I
because
remember those. We had those when we were kids.
Well, anyway, they now
Yeah.
have and everything is on Amazon, obviously.
Yeah, I'll be.
And I was amused with the stainless steel stuff. I was going to give my Revealware away. I think I'm going to bring it back into my kitchen.
An endocrinologist is a specialized doctor who diagnoses and treats hormonal and imbalances and diseases in the endocrine system, including diabetes, thyroid, dysroid, osteoporosis, and metabolic issues.
Right. And so they're claiming that a lot of the microplastics that's out there are causing issues in hormone imbalances with everybody.
Doesn't
And
surprise
but
me.
it's a simple, this is like a 5-minute discussion. It's very simple. That's what they're recommending.
Sydney.
And if anybody is interested in stuff, you can always look that
Sam's
up.
gonna hop up. You're gonna say, "What's Sam this?"
And so, and I'm certainly sure that for the article, certain companies have paid for the right to advertise, to purchase. But it does tell you everything about that and what not to heat in your microwave, because that will then establish other issues. So that's one. Then there was a thing about headlights, where the Chinese have come up with, this is an automobile headlight that is a movie projector.
What?
Yep, it's a movie projector. Chinese EVs can now project entire movies from their headlights.
Why would you want to even do that?
I don't know. I suppose at night that would be
Let
one
me
way
tell
to do it. You
those
have your own drive-in.
Those Chinese have a lot of time on their hands. That's all I can
Put a
say.
family cookout. You put a sheet up on the clothesline, and you
Because they're not selling the projectors anymore.
No, okay.
and
So-
you play the video in your car, and it comes across your headlights.
So they offer full color projection. I don't know how it all works. I'm just saying, I thought this was kind of a funny article. I mean, we talk about so much stuff that's so serious. It's nice to talk about some, well, it's the lighter articles and some of the other things, because I want to briefly touch on something else. And then that was one of them. And then the other one, that was the fact that the new vehicles are going to have detections in them to see if you are impaired to drive.
They've been talking about that for years.
Well, this is a new mandate.
Okay, so now they're
Well,
gonna
the newer
actually do
vehicles
it.
will drive you.
Yeah.
Not my vehicle.
No, I'm not doing that. I can't do that. I need to be in control.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
And so this is in 2027. And there's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reports there's no technology capable of accurately detecting impaired driving. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works.
You know what's amazing? You talk a little bit about cars. All the regulations we have, the safety regulations, what's required. To be perfectly honest with you, I am amazed that I'm still allowed to put my 1965 Dodge Dart on the road. I am amazed that they haven't gone after us, okay? And the only reason I think that was given to me sort of jokingly by one of our former state legislators, because I asked him, I said, why isn't, he said, well, how many of us in the legislature do you think own classic cars? That was his comment. And I said, and he himself did, and I said, I don't know. He said, about 40% of us have classic cars. Now, this was, 15 years ago. And so I don't know. But, you take my old car, there are no airbags. The steering wheel column does not collapse on impact the way it's required for cars to be. There's no padding. Everything inside the car is steel, steel dashboard. There's no soft plastic. The brakes are not modern design. I mean, I'm surprised that I'm allowed to put the car on the road.
Well, I'd like to go back
Yeah.
to an old stick shift, but I'm not going to do that.
And I have a standard shift in the Dart, and I'm surprised that hasn't been outlawed.
Yeah, the only reason
Okay?
not to go back to it is because of my hips and knees. I can't
Yeah.
do it. Another one of the short articles is the sodium-ion battery versus lithium-ion battery. So there's a lot of stuff happening in that.
Is that new technology,
Yeah.
sodium?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
new.
familiar with that. Okay.
It offers a cheaper, safer, and more sustainable alternative to lithium.
Now, lithium is nasty stuff, folks.
Well, yeah, plus the fact that
Nasty
you don't have to
stuff.
worry about spontaneous combustion
Nasty
with
stuff.
sodium.
Yeah.
You still have to be careful of sodium. It's 500 times more abundant than lithium,
There you go.
so you don't have to worry about the raw material issue.
And where do we get it from? Does it say?
I didn't see this.
We know where the lithium comes from.
That's one of those rare earth materials.
Yep.
That's all over the place.
Yeah, but
Not here necessarily,
in
even though I'm
China is the main exporter
Right.
of lithium.
Also, lithium you would choose for long-range electric vehicles and sodium for short range, or stationary energy
so-
storage like
so
the
the
grid, the
lithium-
home, short range, and then sodium is better in the cold weather.
Okay.
Also, you don't have to worry about rain and floods with sodium. So I thought that was kind of interesting as far as one of the other articles that I came across.
You can't get lithium wet because it's an accelerant.
Right.
Okay?
So we only have a couple of
Yeah.
minutes left. There was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about, but maybe we'll bring it up next time.
But
Yeah, I know.
Sydney wants to talk about Lowell, so that'll be fine.
Right, well, maybe we'll talk about a few other things. And then the other interesting thing that I came across is that Russia is short $2.5 million, 2.5 million workers. They don't have enough people to work. They're either aging out of the population or they've left. They left right when the invasion happened in Ukraine.
Well, I don't blame them.
So
Their
there's an issue.
reproduction rate is low.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it
There
doesn't
you go.
meet the deceased rate.
Uh-oh, that's not good.
No. So, anyway, we have, are we doing a short break for any particular reason?
We have to.
I need to let him in. Okay.
So,
We'll be back.
good morning.
budget line, how you're looking at it and determining. Also, how that works with the union, because the budget is short, but the union don't. I haven't read about it a lot, but
Welcome back to City Life. I'm Evelyn Thoren. I am your host up until the short of 8 o'clock this morning.
There we go.
Sam Chase is my co-host. Thanks for getting up extra special early. We have our guest Sidney Liang,
I'm going
who
back
is
to
a
bed
Lowell
when I
City
get home.
Councilor. Yeah, which is great always to have Sidney on. We find all kinds of different perspectives on the inside of what he can talk about, because remember all of those secret squirrel meetings that John likes to talk about that he can't talk
I
about.
love that term, by the way, secret squirrel. In fact, you know what? I actually heard that on the network news a couple days ago. One of the commentators referred to whatever the equivalent of their executive session was.
Executive session.
Yeah, they called it something else, but that's what it was. He referred to it as a secret squirrel meeting, and of course, I burst out, and Candy says, "What are you laughing about?" I said, "John McDonough has called executive session secret squirrel forever." And I said, so apparently somebody picked up on your thing. I just thought that was funny.
Who says people don't watch this
There
shit?
you go. Exactly. I thought, wow, secret squirrel, yeah. Okay.
Well, when I go home from here, Glenn has the news on, and many times while I'm fixing breakfast, I'm listening going, but we already talked about that. We already talked about that. We already talked about that.
Well, maybe you go.
You never know.
You never know where people get their ideas from.
That's
So Sidney,
true.
how you liking the job?
There's up, there's down. So
A lot
far,
more baggage than you thought, right?
yes, yeah. There's a lot more reading, which I like reading it. I mean, just catching up on many different things that's going on in different areas, the different
Well, you have to be
motion.
careful with the reading because the city will give you the tensile strength of tires and have you read a whole chapter on tensile strength. And it's information you really don't need.
No, sometimes I read, but my eyes is also looking at other places as well, so that I'm not occupied reading too much.
Now,
You
Sidney,
know
the
what I
most
mean?
important question is, are you getting your paychecks on time? You get paid as a city councilor. Are they paying you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
good,
I get.
Good. All right. Because
I got paid $400 a week.
that's not bad.
Not bad. Not
Okay,
bad.
so in Chelmsford, we don't get paid.
Ah.
So
No elected office. gets
nobody gets paid. No appointed office gets
Something that
paid.
should be looked at.
Yeah. Well, we've tried to do that, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Right. And so, at this time of the year, many of the communities are doing budgets. Now, in the first hour, we briefly mentioned the fact that this week is Springtown meeting in Chelmsford. Usually, what we address is the budget. So, leading up to this, and Sam is on the Finance Committee, and Sidney wanted to talk about budgets. We get all kinds of information. So, we have this book that is all of the budgets of all of the departments.
Including the capital budget.
And, yeah, and the capital budget is in the back, and then there's a whole lot of,
What's the capital budget?
the capital budget would be roofs, heating systems, infrastructure.
See, we just have one budget at Lowell. It's 5,000 pages long, but we just have one budget.
Yeah. looks
Well,
pretty
it is
small.
one budget, but
No, you have the King budget, the sergeant budget,
no,
the general budget.
no, the only difference that we have is this is the municipal budget, and then you have the reference here, and that's the school department budget.
Right.
That includes a lot of other information that over the years people have asked about, but it's in here if ever anybody wants to do
It's
the
also
reading.
online, if you want to, for example, let's say you, and I'll pick on our group, so I'm an assessor in Chelmsford, let's say you want to find out what the assessor's budget is. It's very simple, you go up online and bing, there it is, line item, this is what the salaries are, this is what the expenses are, and you got it. And that's true of any department.
Really small.
Yeah, so, it's all very, very
Right, but-
accessible. The information is easily accessible to anybody.
Right, so also listed in the school booklet are the salaries of
Salaries.
every employee in the school system. I don't know if Lowell does that. It talks about
Yeah,
all
it
the
does.
out-of-district stuff. It's supposed to be, I would assume, public information. And then it goes by department, which would be whatever the curriculum coordinators are. It does all kinds of timelines, it does enrollment projections, and it gives all the information that Desi would have, but specific to Chelmsford,
Now, I will-
just so that we go into all these details.
Let me just make one comment on top of that, just for an informational purpose. So if you're a Chelmsford resident, obviously what Evelyn just said is true. I mean, the school department does that. But the annual town report that Chelmsford issues lists all employee salaries.
Yes.
Municipal and school. So if you want to find out what Joe Schmo, the police officer, makes, you go to the annual town report and you will see that person's salary listed. Plus it would list any, actually what it does is it lists expenditures. So it'll list his salary, but it'll also, if he's worked overtime, it'll give you those amounts too. So you can find out what every single employee has earned within that fiscal year, okay? So, total transparency, nobody's trying to hide anything, okay? Total transparency. Because a lot of people say, well, we can't get that information. Yes, you can, and it's not hard to get the information.
You just have to do a little bit of work.
Right.
And it's really not that much.
No, it isn't.
So, leading up to this, now you have your process, which you can describe to us leading up to your budget.
Well, I don't know a lot about the process too much yet, but the thing is that the CFO has been talking to communities and going to different neighborhoods meeting and explain the budget and how some of the numbers could be different from last year's. So that's been the process, and I haven't seen, so for example, the total either cut or pain, the employee might be facing. But I'm assuming that we're into a rough year, and
All the communities there.
yeah, and a lot of that. And since I'm a little bit green, I want to, I'm glad I'm here today asking you a question because you have more experience than I do in terms of looking into budget and how it's painful, but I want it to be fair in regarding to budgeting, because I know laying off people is not something that should be taken lightly, and it should be extremely thoughtful and serious about it. Just because you're not laying off just a single person, you're talking about their family, their children, their mortgage, their car payment, and everything else, and it should be put into consideration. And I don't know how, in terms of the municipality, how it worked. Is that something in the decision-making process or not? I know different councils look at things differently, and I'm only like 5 months into the seat, but at the same time, it's important to make sure that people are fairly treated, employees and staff are fairly treated, and a lot of guidance from you, Sam, and Evelyn and John could be helpful, because I'm here to listen mostly and make sure my voice and the staff's voice matter, especially those who might be slated to to get laid off or whatnot. I have no idea what's going to happen, but all I know is that it's going to be really painful somewhat, and who affect the most, that I don't know as well, just because. And another question is that a lot of employees are union-based, and how does that decision work? Let's say, we need this cut, but let's say, union say, hey, you know what, my staff, my people has been working and, this is not fair and this thing just drag on. This is just a scenario. I don't know if that happened before or not, so.
Well, it does, and the first thing, I think everybody agrees, except the most hard-hearted Hannah, nobody likes telling a person you are out of a job, okay? I mean, because everybody understands, that most people are living paycheck or at least double paycheck to paycheck, and once you say that's your income is gone, that is just a huge, serious impact, so nobody enjoys that. When you look at this situation, you have to understand the difference between a termination and a layoff, okay? Two different things. When you're laying off, you're not terminating a person, although that's the effect.
Right.
You are eliminating a position, okay? And that's a very important legal distinction, okay? And it also, when you think of it that way, it helps you to focus on whatever the mission of the department is that you're looking at. So in a layoff, ideally what you're doing is you're going back and you're saying, let's say you have 20 people in the department.
Right.
And you say, every single one of these people is performing a defined job. Do we actually need those 20 jobs? Take the person out of it. Look at the function. Do we actually need those 20 jobs? And maybe if you look at it and you look at, prior history of the department, maybe you determine, gee, we could actually eliminate 2 functions and still operate, okay, and provide an acceptable level of service. So that's how a layoff is done. Okay, once you've made that determination, now you got to deal with the personnel issue. Okay, so at that point, you're going to run into the union, because the union generally isn't going to squawk about a position elimination, okay? What they are going to squawk about is when it comes down to telling the person he has to leave. So depending on how your union contract is worded, okay, it may be that you're going to eliminate this position, but that person in that position cannot be eliminated, okay, because of the, his longevity or whatever the criteria is, okay, that applies. So at that point, now the union is involved when it comes to actually letting a person go. But the first step is to identify a position that can be eliminated, okay? And unfortunately, when these things happen, and it's the same thing in the private sector, it's no different, okay? People scramble it, they get it mixed and they get confused, and that's when you make mistakes, okay?
What if that position that's slated to be, let's say, eliminated, has more seniority or longevity than the needed position?
The position, that won't be a factor in the position. That's a factor for the person working in the position, okay? So it could be, let's say in my example, you want 2 jobs eliminated.
Right.
The union may come back, or even if it's not union, a good management practice will say, take a look at the employees. It could be that a less senior person will be let go, okay, and that person whose job is eliminated will now revert to that position that the less
Sam,
senior
I just want to
person
put
had.
this point in
Okay,
while you're talking about it.
yeah,
In lovely Lowell, Massachusetts, we have a lot of political people who have jobs.
well, it's true in any town, yes.
But Chelmsford doesn't have any Deadwood people. Lowell has a lot of Deadwood people working for them.
I'm not sure that's true, but go ahead.
Well, we haven't
It's an
audited it, so we
opportunity.
don't know.
Yeah,
It's an opportunity to get rid of the Deadwood.
that's
Because
right.
When you cut down the staff, you say, well, look, I can't have Deadwood. Deadwood's got to go.
But that's a
because
different, but see, that
It's
would
something
be,
that has to get looked at when
He's
you're
from
cutting
Canada.
budgets.
yeah, and you're absolutely.
Politically connected and the Deadwood.
You're absolutely right, okay, but it all comes down to management. If you've got a Deadwood person, which by definition means he's not doing his job, then you ought to have that documented via his performance reviews. So if you've got a Deadwood person who doesn't do his job, and you go back into that personnel file and you see 5 years of glowing performance review,
Wow.
you got a problem.
Who says there's performance reviews in Lowell?
I don't know. I hope there are. Aren't there?
Well,
So there's another piece
I
to
don't
this.
think so.
When you're letting
Well,
people go.
then that's a problem. That's
Okay.
a problem. So are
We-
you
we've done
confident? Are you confident that all of your positions in Lowell, the people get annual reviews and there's documentation? Are you confident that that's the case?
well,
I mean, he just said that there aren't any, okay? Which
so
I find hard to believe, but. you know.
I can't say 100%, but I'm assuming the HR department has all these performance
I
reviews.
hope so.
Cool word there is assuming.
I hope so.
Well,
You have
you
to
know,
The
ask.
thing is, you have to ask the manager,
I hope
Right.
so.
your only employee, maybe you have another employee, I
Well-
think maybe you have 3 employees. You have to ask the manager to provide you with documentation that all of these city employees have an evaluation form, and they're evaluated
I hope so.
annually, and have
Yeah.
them put it in writing. You have a lot of city employees, they'll say, look, I'm too busy to email you back, that's why I'm calling you. Calling you means they're gonna lie to you on the phone,
well,
because text, a letter,
Yeah, because it's written.
it's written, you can't take
right,
it back.
right. What I can say is that the reason I'm saying that is that we have, managers evaluation and the 3 people that's working for the council. So I'm assuming that, once, if we do that for the, managers and, the other 2,
It's supposed to be,
right, it's,
right.
I'm,
Everybody should.
yeah,
have it,
I
right.
think, in more than, like I said, it's good, more than likely that they have all of that, because there's no way you're running a city without a performance evaluation. Because
I
any
understand,
company have
you're the
that.
guy to make the decision, I understand.
Now, in
I
addition-
richly disagree, but that's okay.
In addition to the city manager, who are the other 2 people that report directly to the council?
The clerk and the auditor,
The city clerk
yes.
and the city accountant. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we call him town accountant, it's called auditor in a city.
the auditor,
Right,
yes.
Same job, same
Yeah.
thing, right, okay. So, well, yeah, that's the way, but not, well, no, because you have your own legal counsel. You have your own law department.
No, he doesn't.
City council,
No.
no.
We don't have that in
We don't.
Chelmsford.
We don't.
We have.
The city manager has the legal department.
Okay,
Yes.
but see, in Chelmsford, the select board has the
That's the
legal.
way it should be in Lowell.
Yeah.
And the school committee has theirs. So
Correct.
you're talking about personnel. So if you're talking about school department, and then it depends upon what department you pick on as far as trying to streamline it, you got to take a look and see what the union contracts are.
Right.
Because sometimes there's a longevity issue, or that the senior person stays and the other people don't. It just depends on how detailed you have in your contract agreements. So that's one thing that you have to take into consideration. So it isn't just Deadwood, it's a question of whether or not that Deadwood is just sitting there waiting to retire and doing nothing, or they're actually doing the job of all of the new people, because the new people don't know what to do. So that would also be a training issue. So in Chelmsford, I have noticed that we seem to have I like to call it a sine curve, but a lot of people don't know what that is. Kind of like a roller coaster. So you have peaks and valleys. And you have, I have only known about having money in a budget when I wasn't on the school committee. So before that, we were always trying to streamline everything in order to meet the budget. And after that, which is currently, we're going on a downturn again, and this is not unusual. Everybody thinks it's so awful. Oh, we don't have any money, and look at this, and they're blaming certain individuals and or the federal government, which may be true or not true. But there are one-time monies that people put into recurring expenses and then wonder why they don't have the money later because they don't have the resource for the support.
We generally don't do that.
We
in
don't do
Chelmsford.
that in Chelmsford. Currently, we had, under this town manager.
Well, the previous town manager, we did it, but we don't, you're right, we don't do it.
It depends on leadership.
Right.
So, that's another issue that a lot of local municipalities, I don't know if Lowell is included in that, but when you had
Yes, they
one-time monies coming in, they used it in areas that wouldn't be one-time expenditures.
Even real smart towns like Westford did it.
That's correct, and
Okay.
Concord did it.
And Concord did it. Real smart people did that,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
and they shouldn't have.
Right, because then what are you
Right.
gonna do later? So if you have personnel that was hired on that basis, then those are the personnel that you take a look at first, because those would have been extra had you not had the money to do it.
And well, basically, you're right, but extend that further. You look at your ads, okay, so last year, we had a couple of layoffs in Chelmsford. And the positions, again, the positions that were eliminated were the ones that had been added within the previous 5 years. So the assumption is, 5 years ago, we could get along without it.
Right.
It's much better if we have it, but it's 100% necessary. And that's the thought process that was used. So the folks that got laid off a couple of years ago were positions that had been added within the previous 3 or 4 years. So you probably want to look at that too, okay? The recent position ads, okay?
So, in that, something came
Yeah.
to mind, and it depends upon the Massachusetts state laws that are out there currently. Since you add positions within your community for DEI, that's something that you could get rid of, because everybody has to be trained in it. So for somebody to run it, that's an added feature to your budget. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but that was one that just came to mind. That's a relatively new position, considering some people at this table go back 50 years
We
or
don't
more
have
of
it in Chelmsford.
employment.
We don't
have one in
We do
Chelmsford.
not have a paid DEI person.
No, we have a committee that oversees stuff,
Well,
but
the
they're
assumption
volunteers.
is the HR will do that.
Right.
You've already got that
But you
person.
do
there.
have-
Assumption, how you like that?
Yeah.
word?
Yeah. What?
Right, but
John.
there's
So
a lot of
you're
people trained in
assuming
things.
a municipal employee is gonna do their job.
They do it.
That's a good idea.
Well,
You
So,
gotta verify.
that person has an annual performance review. I can
Right.
tell you that for a fact, so you know whether they're doing their job.
I know funeral directors that are in jail because they told the state they really didn't spend that prepaid funeral money,
Well, that's a problem, isn't it?
and they did.
Well,
You have to verify, and if you don't verify, you're a fool.
how many attorneys have lost their law license or are in jail for doing exactly the
Because
same
they
thing?
got caught. They
Yeah.
got caught.
they used
the
their
same thing.
employees' money that was set in
Right.
escrow.
Right.
So, in terms of the budget, and you're taking a look at the expenditures, you can find out or ask for a 5-year look back or a 10-year look back on how the numbers of employees have changed. What is the fastest growing department in hiring? And are their salaries commensurate with competition in other communities, or are they paying extra?
Right,
Do they
that's a
get
good point.
overtime? What are the
That's a
other
good point.
perks that are hidden that are not part of the salary itself, but part of the employment package? And then some of those details may be very revealing in order to get certain people. Do they work all the time? I mean, how many days out of the year do they work? Because when you take a look at school department, they say, 180 days the kids go, that's all they're working, which is what my mother told me when I was growing up. You need to be a teacher. They don't work summers. That was a joke. So after the first year that I taught, I came back, because she wouldn't have believed me beforehand, saying, when you told me this, well, guess what? It isn't like that. So that's a misnomer in terms of what happens, misunderstanding. And then you can also find out if there's professional development within your municipality and what those expenditures are, and ask for an audit of all of the expenditures coming in. Are they taking trips? Who's got the highest expense account if they are getting reimbursed on gasoline? There's a whole lot of things like that where I may be nitpicking, but it does add up.
Right.
Are you leaving the lights on in the schools overnight? When we were talking earlier in the first hour about a lighting bylaw that we have in Chelmsford. Well, it isn't just what's on the outside of buildings. What are you doing on the inside, not for light pollution, but for the uses of the electricity?
Sidney, I'm just gonna open this up because I wanna.
That's the budget one. I didn't bring
show
the
you
other one in. I brought something else in.
Yeah.
So, my problem with had always been, when I was on the school committee, when I drive by the schools,
The lights?
text, the lights are on. Why are the lights on and there's nobody in the building?
Good
So,
question.
there's a number of things, kind of like having the windows open and the heat's on.
Right.
there's a lot of different things that you could ask. Now, you may get thrown at you at some point, well, gasoline prices are going up and oil prices are going up. Well, that's only within the past several weeks or the past month. So what happened prior to that? That's your excuse now. And what if they go down? What are you
Right.
going to do then? Use that money for something else? So the school department has line item autonomy. You don't, I'm assuming, because it's not that type of a budget. But you can ask per line item, can you please explain this?
Well, why don't you ask about free cash? Why do so many departments have free cash? You over budgeted last year, what anticipated free cash do you expect this year? Because the city never gives the tax money back.
Right.
Just, we have free cash, which is money that departments didn't spend.
So what
That's
they're
right.
supposed to do with the free cash,
I know what you're supposed to do, Evelyn, it shouldn't be collected from the get-go.
well, part of what goes on, depending upon what department you're taking a look at, I am extremely familiar with the school department when I was there. And with the free cash, when you have it,
Is that the
sometimes
last
it's,
century?
no. You ask me that every time I say
I
that.
understand, it's been a while though.
So the process has not changed any. But the free cash in many areas is an efficiency issue. You want to not under budget, because now you have to come back in Chelmsford to town meeting to get reappropriated the money. Now, what do you do with the free cash when you get it? First of all, it has to be certified by the state. So when you get it certified, where does it go? Depending upon how much it is, then in Chelmsford, town meeting would have to authorize to send it back to the taxpayer. And,
That's true in any setting.
well, not everybody has town meeting.
Well, it would be the city council in Lowell.
Okay,
Whatever the legislative body is, would take that action.
Right. So the next piece that we have chosen to do many years is to put it into our stabilization fund. Because the
Why
higher,
can't you give it back, Ev?
because it doesn't help, it's a one-time money, it doesn't really help you.
We've done it in the past.
I don't think it's
If my mother
helped.
gave me an extra quarter in my allowance, I would love it. Why
And I'm
can't-
sure you would spend it.
The
But-
deal is that you should give it back to the taxpayers. If you didn't use it,
Well,
give it back.
so what happens in finishing the thought is that you have the stabilization fund, which is your savings account for something in the future that you need to pay, that you may not think that you have to pay because you don't know. And so when you have a higher amount there, you have a better, and Sam can address this issue, a better borrowing percentage when you borrow your money.
That's what people don't see. So if you operate your municipal, and the state would not allow this, by the way, but let's just say it could be done. All right, let's say you operate your municipality such that you have no free cash at all, okay? And your budgeting process is so good and your operation is so efficient that you budget $100, you get 100 in revenue, and you spend exactly 100, okay? Can't happen, but let's just say that that's the case. So you have no free cash ever.
I have
Okay.
another question also.
Do you
is
know how that affects your ability to borrow? First of all, you're not gonna get the best rating from your rating agency.
No.
And that situation of having no reserves in your municipal budget is going to cost you dearly when you borrow money.
Why do we have to borrow
Okay.
money, Sam?
Right.
Why do we have to borrow
So
money?
you would be borrowing money on capital
Capital
projects
projects.
because you don't have that budgeted.
You're gonna build a school.
That's in the future.
You're gonna build a school. Can your annual operating budget absorb the cost of building a
Yep,
school?
it
No, it
does.
cannot. You have to borrow the
We
money.
just bought a school. We bought St. Jean Dock School, lock, stock, barrel, boat dock, and key.
Yeah,
We bought it with the budget money we had.
really.
How much?
I don't remember ever, but it was millions.
When was it?
Just last year.
And what budget?
Maybe 2 years ago now.
What budget paid for that? Where did they get the money?
Lowell taxpayers
Obviously, it
pay
has
for
to be the taxpayer money.
I
If you're
think there's-
building a school,
I think there's more to
you
it
have
than
to
that.
realize
you
you
can
get.
be nitpicky as you want, Sam, because which way will the dollar bills facing when you put them in
I
the
think
bank?
I think there's more to it.
There's
than
another
that.
question.
Right, but do you
about-
have, do you have a savings account?
Yeah, Lowell has free cash.
Personally, yes.
Lowell has free
Okay,
cash.
and so therefore you don't spend every cent that you get, is that
No.
correct?
Nowhere near.
Right, so the I always looked at the municipal budget similar to my thing. I don't spend all my money either. I put it aside. So if I had to pay for a mortgage or if I had to buy a car, they're going to look at my credit rating and they're going to look at my financial picture, and they're going to see I have X amount of
That's what
dollars.
competition's for. Go to a different bank.
You have to have money in the bank.
Go to a different bank. And then, because when
They
you
look at
put
the same
banks,
thing all the time. It doesn't matter
Right.
whether you have a credit union, you got a bank. They're
when
looking
you
at all the
go
same
bank
stuff.
to bank, you get
And
a
they look
better
at your
deal.
credit rating.
You get a better deal.
I'm just saying that I'm not, I understand what you're saying, and I think the money should go back to taxpayers to a certain extent. But understanding a long-range view on spending and how you have to borrow for large capital expenditures, because if you try to rely solely on what's coming in without a stabilization fund for everything that you have, your tax rate would be very high. You would have to be taxed in order to
Sam's gonna
support
bark
it.
at me, but Drake the taxes are lower in Drake than they are in Lowell.
Yeah, and look
And
at
we
this-
do not have the subsidies
look at
of federal government and state government paying for our schools
And-
in Drake.
And look at the situation there, what's going on in Drake right now, budget-wise?
They're always, but you know what? They'll muddle along.
The muddle.
Yeah.
And Chelmsford doesn't get the money that you guys get either
Well, that's the
from
other
the
thing,
state.
Drake it gets,
Drake is not paying their manager $1,000 a day either.
Drake it, how much does the manager make in Drake it?
I have no idea, but it's not $1,000 a day. I'll look it up.
Look it up. And don't forget to.
Well,
don't-
what's Cohen making?
And don't
Well,
just look,
he's not
don't,
making $1,000 a day either.
don't just look at the salary, look at all.
Golden
the other
makes
stuff.
more money than the mayor of Boston.
Well, that's your problem. I'm
be.
saying that when we take a look in
Exactly.
a general,
It's budget time. It's the time that we should look at this.
right, well, you should be looking at it all the time, because there should be updates on your budget, no
Well, let me
more,
ask-
no less than, a quarter.
Let me
Poor
ask,
Sydney's been stuck there. So Sydney, let's see what you got.
Let me ask-
32
let me
pages.
ask
No,
Sydney.
no, I'm learning a lot.
let me
I'm
ask
learning
Sydney a
lot.
question. Okay,
were
so
arguing
this is,
about
this
stuff.
is an example of
Absorb.
what we were talking about. So this
Right.
is from the Chelmsford fiscal '27 budget presentation, and I'll show you the account for the assessor's office, okay?
Right.
So my question is, so you see everything is right here.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you what the amount for salaries, and it
Yeah,
breaks it
from
down into
2025, is that?
2027.
We're looking
Okay.
at this budget.
So you have, it goes back 5
Right.
years.
Mhm.
Here's what we spent in 2022, here's what we spent in '23, and so forth, up to the proposed for '27. So you can see
Right.
the history, the expenditure history. And then, so this section here relates to personnel. This is what we pay people, these are the numbers, okay? And then down here, it shows you what the expenses are for
Right.
running the office. So my question to you is, do you have something like this in Lowell? Is there a place you can go and find out by department all of this information? Do you know?
I think there's a summary of it, and I
No, this is
bet
detail.
I bet there's going to be detail that's coming up.
But
That's
would
not
you,
very
certainly
but would you
ask.
agree that for the average person that doesn't have a degree in finance, would you agree that this is a relatively simple, straightforward thing that
Yeah.
most people would be able to understand?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so in other words, we're not hiding anything from anybody.
Right.
It's out there, people can see it. So to me, this is the standard
Mm-hmm.
that should be used by every municipality in the state so that all of its residents can go. And I want to know what the assessors are
Well,
doing.
it's really easy to understand.
Very
Also,
simple.
The wording is not really, high in terms
Okay.
of like academic word or certain things
Exactly.
that people, easy
And-
to
and
understand.
there's no need for it to be.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So, when I was on the school committee, every time we had a meeting, there was an agenda item on the budget. Where are we? Where is the enrollment? You can
Right.
find out, where is your hiring? Have you fired? Is there any net gain or loss on our employees? If there's a net loss, where did the money go? If there's a
Right.
net gain, where's the money coming from? So there's a whole lot of different kinds of questions you can ask just because of what John said about employment. Now, as far as the capital thing goes, there should be at least a 5-year, if not a 25-year capital plan for your city. Now, from the time I ever sat, not in this specific chair, but this chair on these programs, I have always asked city councilors, including Eric Gitchner, when, not beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to have a long-range plan for capital. We have one in Chelmsford. What is the one that's
Right.
in Lowell?
Right.
If I had a school committee person sit with me, and I'm going back almost 20 years, what is your long-range capital budget that you are recommending, and how do you go about to evaluate? What is your process of replacing your systems? That all comes back to your municipal, because the school doesn't do it.
Right.
But the school in Chelmsford does, to a certain extent. We know what's there. DPW director knows what's going on in all the buildings. So you could always ask for a report of the DPW director as far as budget goes, and
you'll
long
get it.
range.
And you'll get it.
And you should get it, and
Yeah.
long range potholes. How many miles of street do you resurface every year? Do you have a program on having more sidewalks someplace like we do?
Right.
Are we going to cut that out because now we have something else we have to buy? Okay, where are you with replacing your fire engines? Okay, and if you have excess amount of cars sitting in a parking lot someplace for the police station that are not being used, they should be sold. And then that's revenue coming in, and you just don't have this stuff sitting there.
How many city employees are assigned a vehicle? Do you know?
Wow, that's very detailed.
Too
that I
many.
should know.
I would add.
And that's a question.
In
Right.
a city
that
the
costs.
size of Lowell, I would definitely ask that question. And it should be a function of a report. Somebody ought to be able to hit a
Well, while
button
we're
on their
on
computer
vehicles-
and generate it.
While we're on vehicles, in the city's charter, it requires all city vehicles be marked,
Okay?
physically marked on the car.
City of Lowell,
And
right?
they're not.
They're not. Okay, well, that's a problem.
Okay.
So is there a possibility that you can ask the city manager to have the different department heads come in, so that at a city council during budget time, that you can ask them about their budgets? Now, granted, what happens in Chelmsford is all those department heads go into the finance committee,
Right.
not the board, the select board. But if you have a finance committee, which I don't think that you have like we have in Chelmsford,
They have it's a subcommittee of the council.
Right.
right,
That's a
so then
subcommittee.
they ought to be reporting, and you can ask them all of the questions and details that you want of the budget, because they've reviewed the different departments.
Right.
So that way, then, it isn't like city manager is just telling you stuff all the time. He is including, if it is a team effort and not a dictatorship, is including all of his departments in making sure that every city councilor understands the budget inside and out and has the opportunity of asking all the questions, because you were elected to represent your constituency, and your constituency needs transparency. Hate that word, but that's the
That's the bottom-
application.
that's the
That's the
bottom
way
line.
it goes. And that way, then, you're performing your fiduciary responsibility of a commitment to the people that elected you, so they know where their money is going, because the money doesn't belong to the city, it belongs to the people that live here
If you
and work here.
If you
No,
will,
no, it doesn't. Once it's been collected by the municipality, it doesn't belong to the people anymore. It belongs to the government. It's no longer the taxpayers' money.
It's still the taxpayers' money,
No,
because
it's
they're
not.
not the ones making the money,
No, it's not. Can you
except
write a
through
check?
taxes.
Can you write a check on city money? No, it's the city's money, not
But
the
you have
taxpayer.
to ask where it's going.
Taxpayer funded, I will allow that. The saying it's taxpayer money, it's not. It's taxpayer funded.
Who has, in your business, how many people have signing authority to pay bills?
Almost all of them can write a check, but they can't write out of the big checkbook. Only 3 people can write out of the big checkbook. So there
so
are,
they're limited.
they have little checking accounts that they can use to document their spending, which is reviewed by the treasurer. But the big checkbook that has the real money, only 3 people can sign.
So you do have a certain amount of accountability so that you can audit to make sure nobody's doing anything they shouldn't.
One of the first, I can remember,
Yes.
I won't name the individual, but about 12 years ago, we had a newly elected person to our select board. And this person had experience on another board, all right, so they knew, generally what to ask. The first thing that newly elected person did, the very first thing was, I want an accounting of all town vehicles that are assigned to town employees.
Right.
The first thing, and there was not a problem. And there aren't that many in Chelmsford,
Right,
okay?
right.
But they got the list, and I remember them talking about it at one of the select board meetings, and they said, okay, the person was satisfied that it was appropriate, okay, because, and the vehicles were all accounted for. But I'm gonna guess in Lowell, that's gotta be a long list of cars.
We'll find
right?
out. I mean,
I'd like,
Need inventory of what they have.
I mean,
agree.
I don't even live in Lowell, and I'd like to have that information, right? I'd like to
Yeah.
know who gets a city vehicle in Lowell. Be very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's because if you don't mark them and they have white plates, you can't tell.
Well, they should be all marked, and they should have
Should
the.
be, but
yeah,
they're not.
they
And they
should
never
the-
have been.
Well-
Even when Kevin Murphy was here, he was a stickler for it, all the city cars were.
Well, if the city car is registered as owned by the city, then it should have a municipal plate. How
A
would
lot
they-
of them have white plates.
how do they do that?
I have no idea, but it's done.
Well, that's interesting.
Then
I-
you can ask. You
Yeah.
can ask. And how you would ask it is in terms of process. What is your process in doing this? Try to get a feel for how do we do this?
Evelyn, I'm
And
no
saying-
longer hearing you, so,
Your phone's dead, your microphone's dead.
well, I'm just not hearing her, so I don't
Oh.
know what's going on with that guy.
We'll try another one.
Well, it'll work.
Or both. Mm.
You're all better.
Not this one.
Oh, that one is there too.
I guess, Sydney, the bottom line is that
Sam,
however,
give her one of those microphones to your right.
okay, so however the city presents and documents its budget and expenditure and receipt process, it ought to be straightforward, simple, and easily accessed by a citizen of average intelligence, okay? And
Just leave it there, I'll turn it on.
Excel is a wonderful thing, so if everything is documented on an Excel spreadsheet, it's pretty straightforward. And like the example I show you there.
Right,
That's the way, quite frankly, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm going out on a limb here. I would be surprised if the city doesn't do something like this. I'm sure they do, okay? And you just have to ask and make sure that you can get that information.
Sydney, how many pages is the budget? Is it
Oh,
like
I'm
this thick?
assuming, yeah, it's probably about this
See,
thick
the
that I've seen
city's in
before.
the bad habit of giving way too much information for any practical person to process. It's way
And it should be
over your
online.
head.
Right, and I think it's also online.
So if you have a
lately.
PDF folder, depends on how you can get it in your email. That's something, if they say, well, we don't want to print all the paper because of the cost, well, you can send it via email.
Right.
The problem is now trying to read it.
Yeah.
And find what you need, but there
If I
should
was
be
a city
searchable
councilor, I
engines
would-
within the document.
If I was a city councilor, I'd call my friend Sam Chase and ask him, hey, Sam, on a Saturday afternoon, it's raining and you can't cut the grass. Can you go over the Lowell budget and give me some pointers?
Be happy to. I'd be happy to,
He loves it. He's good at it.
you know? Be happy to.
It's kind of like, it's similar to when somebody said, do you think you could bring your tractor over here so you could do something? I'm going, yes! Whereas other people would go,
Then you wind up doing 3-4 times more than you thought you were gonna do, but that's okay.
right, so we've talked about budget to an end here, and
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
is
you
there
got your
some-
work cut out for you.
Hey, I've
You're
learned a
gonna
lot.
earn that $400 a week,
Yes,
let me tell you.
I'm
That's-
earning it,
That's
yeah.
blood money, right?
Yeah.
And if you have other questions,
Yeah.
just, you don't have to come on like every
Well,
month or every other month. You can come on as
right.
many times as you want if we have a space.
What's a difficult sort of like department that's hard to work with in terms of like reducing staff or laying off people? You know, what are some of the most like
Public safety.
public safety?
That's the police and fire would be, and I'm excluding the schools now, that's, because that's a separate
And that's
issue.
Right,
emotional too.
right.
But from an operating standpoint, I would say your public safety
Also administration.
personnel are
You
hard.
mean hard to lay off? Administration is hard to lay off?
Well, and again, it depends on the union situation, but the problem with public safety is, at least, I'm not gonna speak to Lowell because I
Right.
really don't know the situation, but in the suburbs, Chelmsford and the towns, you look at police and fire, generally they're understaffed, okay? So that's a hard situation. Now, that may
Right.
not be the case in Lowell, all right? But, so that's always, I think, the most difficult from a personnel standpoint to say, we need to make
reductions.
Well,
So,
Sam, I'm also told City of Lowell employees have a 26-hour work week.
which departments? All of them?
26 hours?
26 hours.
How do you,
You can ask
how
that
does, how
question.
does that work?
Not well.
I thought it's like 37.5 or something.
Well, whatever the contract says.
If they have a contract.
I had somebody from the city tell me yesterday, 26 hours.
You certainly can ask.
26 a week.
That doesn't sound right.
You
I
can
mean,
ask,
that's, yeah.
you can ask per department,
Mhm.
the breakdown of how many hours everybody works, and is somebody part-time. Then you can also ask, what are your insurance
You're
costs?
gonna get a lot, I'll get back to you on that.
Well, they probably do have part-time.
you ask every time.
They probably do have part-time positions.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
they've got to, because I don't know how you could possibly support everything. So you can find out, if you have laid people off, so how much is it costing us to lay those people off, or terminate them because now you've got unemployment, and that kicks
That's
in.
another consideration.
All right, so you have to take a look at that as an expenditure, because it's not just simply, I'm laying them off and I have all this money available, don't have as much as you think you do.
Right.
So there's a lot of details,
Mhm.
unfortunately, to wrap your head around.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I'm glad also I'm here because there's a lot of question around this, and it's really difficult. Not just the number alone, but you're looking at the personnel issues. You're looking at now also the essential department where you look at. We're like, okay, this department you shouldn't be touching, or there should.
Right.
So this is like a learning curve, a learning process for me where. You don't want to touch something that will, have a bad effect on community and the residents, and also, again, Sam was mentioning, you're looking at the job and the function of the job, and then, maybe the personnel later, and then you have another, component which is a union also, and that also is a learning curve for me, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
have no idea how that work in terms of like personnel. Let's say somebody's been there 20 years or 15 years, versus somebody's 5 year, but the 5-year function is more important than the 15 years. So if you move that person to here, that's not gonna work. That person is probably gonna call sick every 3 days.
Well, the
Well,
person may not actually be qualified to do the job. That's the other thing. But again, you're right. I mean, I think you've described that accurately. And each union situation is going to be different depending on how the contract is structured. Most that I know about, and Evelyn, I don't know if this is still true in the schools or not, but there are, in these situations, there are bumping rights. So again, the more senior people get the preference if you eliminate a job, and the junior person is let go, okay? And I know it was that way years ago, when my wife was a teacher in Chelmsford. That's the way the contracts were written, so, and in fact, she actually benefited in that regard. When there was a reduction, my wife was the more senior person, and she was moved into a different
Right.
position. She went from 4th to 5th grade teaching, okay? And that was a function of the way the contract was written.
But with the function comes with the financial reduction as well, or just the function of the job and the salaries stay the same? For that staff, let's say that.
The salary would stay the same because, for example, a 4th grade teacher and a 5th grade teacher are paid at the same rate. At that point, it's just a function of how long they've
Right.
been in the position, okay? So,
Yeah, to some extent, there is a sort of a seniority.
Sam, why do we have to give contracts to administration?
you don't. That's an option.
Yet in Lowell, we do.
You don't.
And we
You
have
do
to
in
tell
most-
the manager
Everybody
to knock
has
it off.
Yeah,
Well,
everybody.
you didn't used to. I mean, that's a fairly recent thing.
Tell the manager to knock it off.
I remember when,
No more contracts
I
for
remember when
administrators.
Bernie Lynch was hired.
read them.
Prior to Lynch, you guys typically didn't give contracts to your city manager, okay? So that was a relatively new thing. So you have that option. That's a negotiated thing. I mean,
Oh, I see. That's it.
there's no requirement that says you have to give an employment contract. That's a function of what your city council and your town manager or your city manager candidate
agree to it. And there are, and you had it with your school department fairly recently, that was an issue.
Well, Paul Cohen worked with no contract for over a year. I
But he
think.
had a contract to begin with.
But the point is, he didn't have to have an employment contract, and that's exactly right. He worked as an at-will employee for a little over a year.
I didn't know that, Evelyn. I thought that the other contract was gone.
He had
Oh,
a
he has one
contract
now.
and they didn't renew
He
it.
has one now.
He has
Yes.
one now,
And they didn't renew it, and he worked excellently without a contract.
Yeah, he had employment at will, but we
yeah.
also
Much,
have,
much to the chagrin of the board, who thought, until they found out differently, that if his contract expired, he had to leave. That's what they thought,
but it didn't say
but
that.
it doesn't work that way because our charter specifies the
So
term
that's
of
another
employment.
document.
Not the employment agreement, right? Yeah, that didn't work out too well for them.
Oh.
Oh, well,
So is there something else besides
So-
budget?
yep.
I know that you wanted to talk about what happened yesterday.
There's something happened yesterday.
happened
I mean, at the Supreme Court regarding the word was the majority minority redistricting, or something like that. I haven't read through the whole thing, but it could be affecting the city of Lowell just because we redrawn our district, based on that sort of in a way. So I'm just reading it just because like it came through, coming here. I also listening to the radio when they were talking a little bit about it.
Forget that, because they're not gonna give you the facts. You gotta read the decision.
That's
Okay?
infotainment.
You gotta
Infotainment.
read, and can I make a recommendation? When I read Supreme Court decisions,
Mhm.
I always read the dissent first.
Mm.
And the reason I do that is because if you read the dissent, then that tells you what to look for in the majority opinion.
What's the dissent, Sam?
The dissent is the justices who do not agree with the majority opinion.
They
okay?
write why.
And they give you the reasons why they think the majority is wrong, okay?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
Good
read
thinking.
that first, because that'll that'll give you things to look for in the majority of opinion. That's how I always read. But I will not comment because I haven't read the decision. And
Right.
if you think I'm gonna rely on what Fox News or CNN or NBC tells me the decision says, you are sadly mistaken, because those people all have agendas, okay?
Well, now Fox
Nice.
News is look at our lakes.
So I'm going to read the decision, and then
That's awesome.
after I've read the decision, then I will talk about it.
So
Right.
initially, when I was briefly listening to stuff, because I don't watch that much TV anymore, I read a lot. And when I read, as I've told other people,
You don't watch this show?
no. When I read,
Why should
Get
we
home,
watch
that's
it?
it.
We're already,
I'm experiencing
we
it.
already
That's
did it.
It's on
enough.
every morning.
we already did it.
I don't get up that early, and I'm not watching the YouTube thing because I have other things going on in my life. Anyway, when I try to read stuff, when I have the opportunity to read and do stuff for this show and other things that I'm looking up, I'm trying to find both liberal and conservative
You have
views.
6 minutes.
Yes.
And so, in having those liberal or conservative views, then I can formulate my own opinion based upon what it is that I think is applicable.
But you are in the distinct minority.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
Because
gonna take 45 seconds and ask Evelyn, I didn't get to showcase what you baked today. That was what you brought.
Yeah. So, John didn't get up, but what I made today for him was an almond Danish that I put coconut in because I know that he likes coconut.
Very good.
So when you I didn't
Everything
ta-
you make is very good, Evelyn.
when you taste it, because Glenn's my taster. He said it reminded him of something that his grandmother used to make. I said, well, that goes back 10 decades. And if I had put almonds in it, you would have had an almond joy Danish, but I didn't.
No
I
chocolate
just
though, right?
no, there's no.
Okay.
I can put it on the top. I'm going to play with this
There you
type of thing because I happen to like almond joy bites. So on the gerrymandering thing, the history begins with Massachusetts, and it is named after the guy that did it.
Elbridge Gary,
Yep, and that was established
18.
in 1812,
Right.
and the pros and cons of it. And so when they looked at it, it usually had to deal with a partisan issue. But he looked at it on how, from my understanding, on how he could maximize his party. The thing that's in Louisiana, the way that they were trying to redo the boundaries was racist.
Racially based.
Yes. How
Racially
many, blacks can we have in here? How many purples can we have over here? How many pinks can we have over here? And so we want it that way. And when the majority, this is oversimplification, looks at it, they're saying this is racist because all you're doing is focusing on how many black voters you can have. And you can't do that. You have to focus on how many voters without descriptors, white voters, black voters, purple voters.
Right.
And that's why they said it's not constitutional. So that would be something very appropriate if somebody brings the court case for Virginia, or it will then impact Virginia.
Budget in here, tomorrow City Life, we have Cliff Krieger's gonna be the host, Eileen Del Rossi's gonna be here, Melanie Gilbert's gonna be here from the Little Sun, Jose Cervantes will be here, and Anthony Late, for state rep, he's gonna be here too. The time is short, Ev.
So the other thing, and this is a controversial statement here, the other thing that that came across Facebook I was amused at is that the only ones that are trying to commit assassinations are Democrats. And there's a number of things that's out there. We take a look.
The Russians do.
No, I'm talking about this country.
The only people trying to commit assassinations are lunatics.
Well,
Doesn't matter what party.
Oh, do
They're
you
also-
think the Secret Service needs to go target practice? They shot the guns like 45 times and they didn't hit anybody.
Yeah, well,
was moving really fast.
firing under
duress.
duress and under fire
You should not fire unless you're a good shot.
is a
man.
lot different than firing at a target, I can tell
I'll bet you that's friendly fire that hit the Secret Service guy.
Well, they said this morning it wasn't, but who knows?
And based upon some of the other comments coming out, is that racism only goes in one direction. And as Sam has said, rules for thee but not for me, and that's exactly what's going on. And there was the other one when there was a criticism of Holman in charge of ICE, and they're all criticizing everything that's going on. Well, Barack Obama gave him a medal for what he did, and he hasn't changed what he's doing. So it depends on who's in
Well,
the
since
in the arena here.
Since Holman has taken over, have you heard any media criticism? I haven't.
Not much.
No, I mean, so something's happened,
You-
right?
The only criticism you've got is pretty much from the other party.
Well, the people who would criticize anyway, but I mean, when the Tolman got in there and immediately got the noise level turned down, so something's going right.
So,
now.
Sidney, the original question was how could this ruling affect Massachusetts?
It's a good question.
60 seconds.
Not having read the decision, but
Right,
what
it's
you just
filling in,
said,
yeah.
the decision seems to be based on a racial
Right, only.
objective. Okay, so you're right to ask the question, does it or will it apply to the city of Lowell?
Right.
I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because, and then the
Right.
representation, they're talking about how, people are going to be disengaged, not want to vote. Well, I'll tell you, the way that they're setting it up, why do Republicans want to vote? Because we have no representation at all in many, many areas.
The problem
Anyway,
is
that being stated,
Republicans don't vote, that's the
thank you
problem.
very much, Sydney, for being
Thank you.
here. We
Thank
welcome
you.
you to
Thank
come
you for all the
back. Hopefully we
guidance.
haven't overwhelmed you with all kinds of stuff. And thanks, Sam
Call
and John.
anytime, Sidney, call anytime. Be happy to spend time.
Yeah, I still have a lot more questions about budget and stuff. So I want to make sure it's all trying to be, fair and the process is right and not, view in different lights.
What a radical idea. You actually want to try to do the job the right way? What's the matter? What's the matter with you?
I know what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Huh?
And next week we'll have Paul Cohen on. So everybody
Yeah.
take care. Have a great day.
Yep.